Example number 4, much more on the less crunchy side of what we've been doing. These 10 to 15 minute problems. This should not be nearly as long as at all. So we're going to go ahead and solve this equation right here, which will lead us into another quadratic equation. All right. So the way that we want to solve these kind of problems right here is that we want to isolate the radical, meaning get the radical so it's all by itself. So I want to get rid of this 1 by subtracting 1. We get 2x minus 1 equals radical x. And the reason why I wanted to isolate the radical x is so that now I'm going to square both sides. I'm going to square the left side and square the right side, which will eliminate the radical. Okay, so now that square crosses out with that right there, you see. So that means when I square this right here, okay, that right, remember again, this right here means 2x minus 1 times 2x minus 1. Okay, so we have to do the FOIL method, right? If you do your FOIL, I'll do it over here. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times negative 1 is a negative 2x. Negative 1 times 2x is a negative 2x. And a negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1. So if you combine those together, this left side becomes 4x squared minus 4x plus 1. Okay? And that equals just x right there. Okay? Because the radical and the square, they cancel each other out. All right? So now what we want to do here is we want to solve for x, right? So let's rewrite this in standard form. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides and get 4x squared minus 5x, because negative 4 minus 1, negative 5x plus 1 equals 0. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to solve this, and it would be nice if this thing was factorable, so we don't have to use the quadratic formula. But of course, you can use the quadratic formula. Okay, and if you do factor it, I'm going to go and factor it over here. So you can do it by the method the way that I taught you. You multiply the 4 and the 1, right? So you get 4 on top and then negative 5 on the bottom. So two numbers that multiply and give us 4, and you add to get negative 5. Well, that's negative 4 and negative 1, right? Negative 4 times negative 1 is 4. Negative 1 plus negative, or I'm sorry, negative 4 plus negative 1 is negative 5. So we rewrite this, right, as 4x squared, but then we rewrite negative 5x as negative 4x minus x. Okay, so that's where these things come from. So this gave us this guy right here, right? So that's where that came from. And then you do plus 1. So notice what I just did here. I just rewrote this equation right here, but I wrote negative 4x minus x instead of negative 5x. All right, so now we put these in parentheses. And the GCF right here, they both have a 4 in common. Actually a 4x. So don't forget about the x right there. So put that guy there. So take out a 4x. So I'll have x minus 1. Here, notice that I want inside the parentheses to be an x minus 1. So I'm going to factor out a negative 1. And a negative 1 times what is negative x? Well, positive x, right? Negative 1 times positive x is negative x. And then negative 1 times what is a positive 1? So negative 1. So see how both of those are the same? That should always be true. So since those are both the same, I'm going to get x minus 1. And then these guys right here, 4x minus 1. 4x minus 1 equals 0. All right. So we factor that. Now if we, this factoring, I mean, I guess it's kind of lengthy. You could have just used the quadratic formula. I guess, either one that you wanted there. But let's go ahead and solve now. So I set this equal to 0. X minus 1 equals 0. Set this equal to 0. 4x minus 1 equals 0. And I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So I get x equals 1. I add 1 to both sides. Get 4x equals 1. Divide by quattro. So I get x equals 1/4. Okay. Now, again, since, and we learned this back in, I think it was chapter 8, if we square both sides, one of the things that we have to do is we have to check our answers right here. Okay, so that's what we're going to want to do right now is check our answers. I'm going to go ahead and just move this down, example B. Okay, so let's go ahead and check your answers. Okay, the only time that you have to check your answers is when you square both sides, all right? So check, oops, I wanted the red one there. Check your answer. So we're going to plug in 1, and we're going to plug in 1/4 into the original equation, which is right there. Let me just go ahead and rewrite that. So that's 2x equals square root of x plus 1. All right. So let's see. Is it true or false? Is 2 times 1 the same thing as the square root of 1 plus 1? 2 times 1 is 2. Square root of 1 is 1, which is plus 1 is 2. So bing! Yay! So 1 is an answer. Now, is 1/4 an answer, though? Let's see. Is 2 times 1/4 the same as the square root of 1/4 plus 1? Well, let's see. 2 goes into 4 2 times. So that's 1/2 equals the square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 4 is 2 plus 1. So the halves are equal, but this side has an extra plus 1. So the left side is not equal to the right side. Therefore, we cross out the 1/4. That is not an answer. The only answer here is just 1. Okay? All right, I have an example B here. All right, so let's go ahead and solve. And again, since the radical is already by itself, I'm going to go ahead and square both sides. I'm going to square the left side, and I'm going to square the right side. So I get x squared equals, the radical crosses out with the square. Cool beans. 9x minus 20. So let's go ahead and move the 9x over here. And move it over here. So I get x squared minus 9x plus 20 equals 0. And, oh, I'm sorry, like I didn't show that. I just did the opposite here, so I subtracted 9x minus 9x. So that's how I got negative 9x. And then I added 20, and that's how I got plus 20 there. Okay, so this one, we can go ahead and factor this guy as well. So let's do our judo x. 20 on top, negative 9 on the bottom. Two numbers that multiply and give us 20, and add to get negative 9. A little bit about trickery. I think we can do 5 and 4, but make them both negative. Negative 5 and negative 4 gives us positive 20, and when I add these guys, I get negative 9. So I get x minus 5 as my first factor, and I get x minus 4 as my second factor. So now I set each factor equal to 0. X minus 5 equals 0. And I do the same thing to that factor. And I solve now. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Get x equals 5. And I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And I get x equals 4. And but before we get all crazy like, yeah, whoop, there it is, we need to check our answers. We need to check yo answer. Okay, and we're going to plug it back into the original equation, which was right here. X equals the radical 9x minus 20. Okay, so let me write that down here. X equals radical 9x minus 20. Okay, make sure that's correct there. All right, so let's plug these in. Let's first plug in 5. Is it true? Does 5 equal radical 9 times 5 minus 20? Well, let's see. Is 5 equal to, well, 9 times 5 is 45. 45 minus 20 is 25. And 5 does equal 5. So, bing! Yay! So we know that 5 is an answer. Now what about quattro? So let's plug in 4 into here. Plug in 4 for x. So 4 equal to the square root of 9 times 4 minus 20? Let's see. Is 4 equal to 36 minus 20? Does 4 equal the square root of 16? And 4 does equal 4. Yay! So both answers are true. Boam.